felled tree. Brooke, Stanick. The morning after he left, she was empty dirt, a space where a person used to be. He had lopped off pieces of her from the minute that he knew she'd fallen in love. Like a felled tree, he didn't have use for her leaves, the frontiers of her mind growing into empty space in her once boundless sky. No need for new frontiers. He wanted utility from his wife. She would never forget the first time his threats turned into wounds, the time when he had had too much to drink and burned bits of her personality to keep his ego warm. No need for her to grow. He was a blanket over her. He kept her warm and safe and airless. How could she breathe again without his strict instructions on how to breathe and when? How could she learn to live when most of her years had been lived on her behalf? He said that only he could possibly love her. Only he could love her naked. So, of course, she didn't love herself. She hated mirrors, almost as much as she hated the plants in her window box. They got to grow in beautiful colours each season. They got to die and renew and start over. She was constrained to live in the bounds of black and white because both she and her dreams needed to be paused for his ambitions. In return, she got the fruit of his labour and a side of his bed, and every poisonous drop of his private hatred and public compliments. A generous husband, he would say. He would never let her speak or grow or flower. A generous husband, he would say, would never let her make the mistake of living. The funny thing was that she agreed. Who was she to know what exactly was best for her? Her, the sorest charity case that he saw, and so generously, so selflessly took. The lucky, chosen, blessed white that got his attention, that got his last name. Her family was shocked. They had thought that she would never find someone to love her. And to them, he looked like love. Because how could they know what was happening behind closed doors? How could they know that her soul was begging for release when her words never said such a thing? She needed him to breathe. Remember? She lost all her friends when he found her. He didn't like her friends. They saw early pain in her eyes. They smelled his wolf breath, but they couldn't know for sure what he was. The way he looked at her, it could have been love, or possession, or hatred, or just the very driest form of love. Who were they to know? When he left and she was reduced to soil, how was she supposed to think about a better future? He had the power to suck her dreams right out of her. This had been her dream. to live in a nice house with a nice husband. He was a nice husband. Nice husbands, of course, usually have some less than nice things they do, like smoke cigarettes or forget the trash or hit wives. Soon, she stopped dreaming. Tears moistened her cheeks. She didn't look 32. She only looked 32 when she wore makeup or took a shower. Water washed some years away. He added a few, by force. Because all those terrible, awful times that his dinner wasn't perfect, he needed to teach her a lesson. Why would she decide to go? She wouldn't. She couldn't. She needed him to breathe. Of course, he could go out with the guys, by which he meant go out with other women. A good player of the game, he knew how to make his turns count. She knew he was going out more. Maybe, just maybe she knew. Maybe the smell of perfume was just from a co-worker. The chances were high that he was just wearing a new cologne, right? And he spilled it and didn't want to change, nor change out of lipstick-stained shirts. But she didn't say anything. She washed them because that was her job. And by doing her job correctly, she thought that she could keep him from leaving. That was wrong. Of course, he left. After making her reliant on him, after cutting all her leaves, after covering her from sunlight to make sure she wouldn't grow, he left for someone new, someone with life for his foul talons to carve into, someone with brilliance that needed to be extinguished. And she was left to figure out what life was like without him. She couldn't breathe. How is this fair, she thought, that he can breathe and I cannot? She thought that it was luck, some incredible hap that they had met. She'd been so thankful that he had taught her to live. But how could he have taught her to live when her growth was against his rules? She'd been convinced that a world without him would be worse. But now, left with a rich network of roots, she realised that her life with him had been barren. And yes, she was breathing, free from his instruction. She took off his blanket and found that although the world was cold, it was very, very bright.